All right, so that's the big story. The Supreme Court ordering the liquidation of Jet Airways. And of course, to discuss this big story, I'm now joined by Captain Sanjay Karve, Aviation Expert and Analyst. Thank you very much, Captain, for joining us here on ET. Now, it's been years since talks around revival of Jet Airways began, but finally, the Supreme Court today ordering the airline's liquidation. Your first thoughts on whether this was the best option?
Sumita, I agree with the Supreme Court ruling because if you look back at history, this entire episode started in 2018. If you start looking at the balance sheet of Jet Airways from 2018, it was constantly showing a loss. And apparently, there were no efforts made by Jet Airways to correct its financial balance sheet. And this is despite Etihad pumping in a lot of money. We had people leaving the airline, aircrafts being grounded, lease money not being paid. Forget the part that the aircraft was on ground. It was also projecting a wrong image in the aviation world that it is unsafe to do aviation business with any Indian airline. Unfortunately, the government's fear that the airline will not be able to sustain came true. One also has to realize when we are blaming the government or the Supreme Court or the Jet Airways, what about the lenders? They all nationalized banks. Jet Airways owes them to the tune of 8,000 to 9,000 crores. This is as of 5 years ago. I am not talking of the interest component. They all nationalized banks. So any money loss by the nationalized banks is a loss by the people of India. It is not a loss of a private company. It is lost by the people of India. There were employees of Jet Airways who have not been paid for last 5 years.
Right, so very valid question, and this is absolutely, sir. And that really raises several questions, and we'll come to that point in just a bit, sir. But let me ask you that there are several questions now arising on who's going to pay for losses that have been incurred by various creditors who've been waiting for payment for the last 5 years. And as it is, airline assets are depreciable assets.
That's a very interesting question. I don't think Jet Airways has assets worth more than few hundred crores. So I really don't know where is this 9,000 crores going to come from. One thing is for certain that the employees can forget about getting back their dues. Also, there are about 120,000 retail shareholders who also invested in Jet Airways after the NCLAT gave permission for your Jalan Calrock to invest money into that. So this 130,000 investors can also forget about their invested money. The point what we have to understand is the aircraft assets which are on ground have depreciated so badly that on paper, if they are valued at X, the actual value, what you may get is going to be X by 4 or X by 5. Even the 3 aircraft which was sold by Jet Airways to pay off their dues, they are still lying on the airport. The company which is supposed to pick up those aircraft has a huge outstanding amount to pay to Airports Authority of India. So there is no way, even after disposing of the airways or the airlines, that the creditors can recover their money. Yes, probably what they can do is they can sell the brand name of Jet Airways. The moot question is, would someone like to invest money with the name of Jet Airways? That is something which has to be seen. Because Jet Airways still has a lot of people who owe their alliance to them. There are a lot of passenger loyalty. Even while traveling abroad, I see a lot of people have got that Jet Airways frequent flyer tag on their bags. So it's not that people have forgotten Jet Airways. I meet people who swear with the service quality of Jet Airways.
So yes.
So maybe the brand may have some value.
Right. Right, and we'll have to see whether the participants actually take that route. But sir, let me come to this important point, because a lot of legal experts are also saying that the insolvency law needs to be mended for speedy rehabilitation of airlines, given the protracted time that this case itself has taken. It's been going on for at least more than 5 years, which is definitely a waste of time and effort for agencies and parties involved.
Absolutely, I agree with it. The decision, whatever you want to take, whether you want to have a concern going or whether you want to close down a concern, needs to be taken quickly. More so in respect of aviation assets. The depreciation value is extremely high. An aircraft on ground is worth nothing. And every passing day, the maintenance increases. An aircraft may have flown only 500 hours, but if it has been on ground for about a year, the amount of money involved in getting it back in air, it is prudent to buy another second-hand aircraft or a pre-owned aircraft. Now you have assets lying of all these airlines, if you just go back, you had Go Air. Now you have Jet Airways. Plenty of assets, airborne assets, ground support equipment, qualified manpower, all this is being wasted. And the actual value today on ground is going to be close to zero, if I may say so. So it is extremely essential that in a case like this, the government has to have a mechanism which does a speedy redressal. Either you revive it or you shut it down. You cannot have it continue for years together and keep people on tender hooks and keep them wondering as to is the airline going to come back, go back in air, or it is going to be permanently grounded. Now, from 2019 to 2021-22,
right, sir. So what sort of
kept on going.
Sir, yes, sir.
Yeah, and after that, the lenders have
Sir,
gone
so
to
what
the
sort
court.
of policy interventions are you advocating at this point in time, given that you've been an observer of this sector for a very long period of time?
Yes, the balance sheets of airlines need to be scrutinized as to why there is a loss. Does the airlines have deep pockets to handle those losses? One of the reasons what I say is happening is, if you notice about 3 to 4 years ago, there was cutthroat competition. Every second day, we used to have an advertisement. 199 rupees fare, Mumbai to Delhi. 180 rupees fare, Mumbai to Bangalore. 299 rupees fare, Delhi to Chennai. Every airline was trying to outbid everyone else. And especially if an airline is owned by a single individual or a family, there is a lot of scope of mismanagement, or they overruling qualified managers who can run the airline. We need to have a procedure set in that the finances are looked into by the Ministry of Civil Aviation. A check is kept, and if they find early corrective action can be taken. A classic example is SpiceJet, which went very close to liquidation, but credit to the government and DGCA, they stepped in well in time, and you find that SpiceJet is again flying. Yes, it is not as strong as it should have been, but it is definitely not on the brink of collapse. If I recollect, SpiceJet has just cleared the salary for last 3 months after infusion of funds. So it is possible if the government puts it.
Absolutely, and the timely intervention. Yes, sir. So the timely intervention has come in from the government and, of course, agencies as well. But one final question, sir, before we let you go, and we're completely running out of time. Would it be safe to say that aviation sector is now very much moving towards a duopoly, and that's definitely not in the best interest of flyers? Is there a future then for full service carriers, especially when low service carriers seem to be doing better using that model?
I don't think so. There are people who are willing to pay money, who are people who are willing to pay for comfort. Indigo, if you remember, started off saying that I'm going to use a 3-to-1 LR on my long distance routes. Over a period of time, they have realized that having people sit on a cramped seat for 8 to 10 hours is not going to work in the longer run. People are willing to pay money. So now Indigo is also coming out with their so-called business class, or Indigo Stretch, which is nothing but a mini business class. Vistara has always been running at 85 to 90% load, despite being one of the priciest carriers in India. So there is a demand. If you provide the service, if you provide the quality, you will find people. Low-cost carriers, yes, they have their own customer base. That will not vanish. But that does not mean that a full-service carrier has got no place to exist. A full-service carrier in a country with 1.5 billion of population has got place to exist. You look at any international route of Air India.
Right, sir.
The business class and first class is full.
Right.
And for a ridiculous price. Means I am amazed.
Right. Right, sir. And definitely there needs to be a much needed intervention by the government. You say that there is definitely a case to be built up for full service airlines, provided that they are run professionally and the intervention comes in just at the right time, as has happened with SpiceJet, is the word coming in from you, sir. On that note, thank you very much for taking the time out and speaking with ET Now. Ladies